Chapter 5. Whitey. Penrod and Sam made a gloomy discovery one morning in mid-October. All the week had seen amiable breezes and fair skies until Saturday, when, about breakfast time, the dome of heaven filled solidly with grey vapour and began to drip. The boys' discovery was that there is no justice about the weather. They sat in the carriage house of the Schofields' empty stable. The doors upon the alley were open, and Sam and Penrod stared torpidly at the thin but implacable drizzle that was the more irritating because there was barely enough of it to interfere with a number of things they had planned to do. "Yes, this is nice," Sam said, in a tone of plaintive sarcasm. "This is a purty way to do." He was alluding to the personal spitefulness of the elements. "I'd like to know what's the sense of it. Old sun pouring down every day in the week when nobody needs it, then cloud up and rain all Saturday. My father said it's going to be a 3 days rain." "Well, nobody with any sense cares if it rains Sunday and Monday," Penrod said. "I wouldn't care if it rained every Sunday as long I lived, but I'd just like to know what's the reason it had to go and rain today. Got all the days of the week to choose from and goes and picks on Saturday. That's a fine business." "Well, in vacation," Sam began, but at a sound from a source invisible to him he paused. "What's that?" he said, somewhat startled. It was a curious sound, loud and hollow and unhuman, yet it seemed to be a cough. Both boys rose, and Penrod asked uneasily, "Where'd that noise come from?" "It's in the alley," said Sam. Perhaps if the day had been bright, both of them would have stepped immediately to the alley doors to investigate, but their actual procedure was to move a little distance in the opposite direction. The strange cough sounded again. "Say," Penrod quavered, "what is that?" Then both boys uttered smothered exclamations and jumped, for the long, gaunt head that appeared in the doorway was entirely unexpected. It was the cavernous and melancholy head of an incredibly thin, old, whitish horse. This head waggled slowly from side to side. The nostrils vibrated, the mouth opened, and the hollow cough sounded again. Recovering themselves, Penrod and Sam underwent the customary human reaction from alarm to indignation. "What you want, you old horse, you?" Penrod shouted. "Don't you come coughing around me!" And Sam, seizing a stick, hurled it at the intruder. "Get out of here!" he roared. The aged horse nervously withdrew his head, turned tail, and made a rickety flight up the alley, while Sam and Penrod, perfectly obedient to inherited impulse, ran out into the drizzle and uproariously pursued. They were but automatons of instinct, meaning no evil. Certainly they did not know the singular and pathetic history of the old horse who wandered into the alley and ventured to look through the open door. This horse, about twice the age of either Penrod or Sam, had lived to find himself in a unique position. He was nude, possessing neither harness nor halter. All he had was a name, Whitey, and he would have answered to it by a slight change of expression if anyone had thus properly addressed him. So forlorn was Whitey's case, he was actually an independent horse. He had not even an owner. For 2 days and a half, he had been his own master. Previous to that period, he had been the property of one Abilene Morris, a person of colour who would have explained himself as engaged in the hauling business. On the contrary, the hauling business was an insignificant sideline with Mr. Morris, for he had long ago given himself, as utterly as fortune permitted, to the talent that early in youth he had recognized as the greatest of all those surging in his bosom. In his waking thoughts, and in his dreams, in health and in sickness, Abilene Morris was the dashing and emotional practitioner of an art probably more than Roman in antiquity. Abilene was a crapshooter. The hauling business was a disguise. A concentration of events had brought it about that at one and the same time, Abilene, after a dazzling run of the dice, found the hauling business an actual danger to the preservation of his liberty. He won $17.60, and within the hour found himself in trouble with an officer of the Humane Society on account of an altercation with Whitey. Abilene had been offered $4 for Whitey some 10 days earlier, wherefore he at once drove to the shop of the junk dealer who had made the offer and announced his acquiescence in the sacrifice. "No, sir," the junk dealer said with emphasis. "I already done got me a good mule for my delivery hoss. That old Whitey hoss ain't wuff no $4 nohow. I was a fool when I talked about throwing money round that away. I know what you up to, Abilene. Man come by here a little bit ago told me all about white man try to arrest you over on the avenue. Yes, sir. He say white man going to get you yet, and thou you in jail counter Whitey. White man trying to find out who you is. He say, Namin, he'll know Whitey again, even if he don't know you. He say he catch you by the hoss, so you come round, try and fix me up with Whitey, so white man grab me, thou me in at jail. Gone away from you Abilene. You can't sell, and you can't give Whitey to no coloured man in his town. You go and drown at old hoss, 'cause you sutney going to jail if you get catched driving him." The substance of this advice seemed good to Abilene, especially as the $17.60 in his pocket lent sweet colours to life out of jail at this time. At dusk, he led Whitey to a broad common at the edge of town and spoke to him finally. "Come about your business," said Abilene. "You ain't my hoss. Don't look round at me, 'cause I ain't got no acquaintance with you. I'm a man of money, and I got my own friends. I'm a-looking for bigger cities, hoss. You got your business, and I got mine. Mr. Hoss, good night." Whitey found a little frosted grass upon the common and remained there all night. In the morning, he sought the shed where Abilene had kept him, but that was across the large and busy town, and Whitey was hopelessly lost. He had but one eye, a feeble one, and his legs were not to be depended upon, but he managed to cover a great deal of ground, to have many painful little adventures, and to get monstrously hungry and thirsty before he happened to look in upon Penrod and Sam. When the two boys chased him up the alley, they had no intention to cause pain. They had no intention at all. They were no more cruel than Duke, Penrod's little old dog, who followed his own instincts, and making his appearance hastily through a hole in the back fence, joined the pursuit with sound and fury. A boy will nearly always run after anything that is running, and his first impulse is to throw a stone at it. This is a survival of primeval man, who must take every chance to get his dinner. So when Penrod and Sam drove the hapless Whitey up the alley, they were really responding to an impulse thousands and thousands of years old, an impulse founded upon the primordial observation that whatever runs is likely to prove edible. Penrod and Sam were not bad. They were never that. They were something that was not their fault. They were historic. At the next corner, Whitey turned to the right, into the cross street. Thence, turning to the right again, and still warmly pursued, he zigzagged down a main thoroughfare until he reached another cross street, which ran alongside the Showfield's yard, and brought him to the foot of the alley he had left behind in his flight. He entered the alley, and there his dim eye fell upon the open door he had previously investigated. No memory of it remained, but the place had a look associated in his mind with hay, and, as Sam and Penrod turned the corner of the alley, in panting yet still vociferous pursuit, Whitey stumbled up the inclined platform before the open doors, staggered thunderously across the carriage house, and through another open door into a stall, an apartment vacant since the occupancy of Mr. Schofield's last horse, now several years deceased. Chapter 6. Salvage. The two boys shrieked with excitement as they beheld the coincidence of this strange return. They burst into the stable, making almost as much noise as Duke, who had become frantic at the invasion. Sam laid hands upon a rake. "You get out of there, you old horse, you!" he bellowed. "I ain't afraid to drive him out. Wait a minute," Penrod shouted. "Wait till I—" Sam was manfully preparing to enter the stall. "You hold the doors open," he commanded, "so's they won't blow shut, and keep 'em in here. I'm going to hit 'em." "Quiyote!" Penrod shouted, grasping the handle of the rake so that Sam could not use it. "Wait a minute, can't you?" He turned with ferocious voice and gestures upon Duke. "Duke!" And Duke, in spite of his excitement, was so impressed that he prostrated himself in silence and then, unobtrusively, withdrew from the stable. Penrod ran to the alley doors and closed them. "My gracious!" Sam protested. "What you going to do?" "I'm going to keep this horse," said Penrod, whose face showed the strain of a great idea. "What for?" "For the reward," said Penrod simply. Sam sat down in the wheelbarrow and stared at his friend almost with awe. "My gracious," he said, "I never thought of that. How much do you think we'll get, Penrod?" Sam's thus admitting himself to a full partnership in the enterprise met no objection from Penrod, who was absorbed in the contemplation of Whitey. "Well," he said judicially, "we might get more, and we might get less." Sam rose and joined his friend in the doorway, opening upon the two stalls. Whitey had preempted the nearer and was hungrily nuzzling the old frayed hollows in the manger. "Maybe $100, or something?" Sam asked in a low voice. Penrod maintained his composure and repeated the newfound expression that had sounded well to him a moment before. He recognized it as a symbol of the non-committal attitude that makes people looked up to. "Well," he made it slow and frowned, "we might get more and we might get less." "More than $100? Sam gasped. "Well," said Penrod, "we might get more and we might get less." This time, however, he felt the need of adding something. He put a question in an indulgent tone, as though he were inquiring, not to add to his own information, but to discover the extent of Sam's. "How much do you think horses are worth anyway?" "I don't know," Sam said frankly, and unconsciously he added, "They might be more, and they might be less." "Well, when our old horse died," Penrod said, "Papa said he wouldn't take in $500 for him. That's how much horses are worth." "My gracious!" Sam exclaimed. Then he had a practical afterthought. "But maybe he was a better horse than this'n. What color was he?" "He was bay. Looky here, Sam," and now Penrod's manner changed from the superior to the eager. "You look what kind of horses they have in a circus, and you bet a circus has the best horses, don't it?" "Well, what kind of horses do they have in a circus? They have some black and white ones, but the best they have are white all over." "Well, what kind of a horse is this we got here?" "He's purty near white right now, and I bet if we washed him off and got him fixed up nice, he would be white." "Well, a bay horse is worth $500, because that's what Papa said, and this horse—" Sam interrupted rather timidly. He's awful bony, Penrod. You don't guess they'd make any—" Penrod laughed contemptuously. "Bony? All he needs is a little food, and he'll fill right up and look good as ever. You don't know much about horses, Sam, I expect. Why, our old horse—" "Do you expect he's hungry now?" asked Sam, staring at Whitey. "Let's try him," said Penrod. "Horses like hay and oats the best, but they'll eat most anything. I guess they will. He's trying to eat that manger up right now, and I bet it ain't good for him." "Come on," said Penrod, closing the door that gave entrance to the stalls. "We got to get this horse some drinking water and some good food." They tried Whitey's appetite first with an autumnal branch that they wrenched from a hardy maple in the yard. They had seen horses nibble leaves, and they expected Whitey to nibble the leaves of this branch. But his ravenous condition did not allow him time for cool discriminations. Sam poked the branch at him from the passageway, and Whitey, after one backward movement of alarm, seized it venomously. "Here! You stop that!" Sam shouted. "You stop that, you old horse, you!" "What's the matter?" called Penrod from the hydrant, where he was filling a bucket. "What's he doing now?" Doing? He's eaten the wood part too. He's chewing up sticks as big as baseball bats. He's crazy." Penrod rushed to see this sight and stood aghast. "Take it away from him, Sam," he commanded sharply. "Go on, take it away from him yourself," was the prompt retort of his comrade. "You had no business to give it to him," said Penrod. "Anybody with any sense ought to know it'd make him sick. What did you want to go and give it to him for?" "Well, you didn't say not to." "Well, what if I didn't? I never said I did I? You go on in that stall and take it away from him." "Yes, I will," Sam returned bitterly. Then, as Whitey had dragged the remains of the branch from the manger to the floor of the stall, Sam scrambled to the top of the manger and looked over. "There ain't much left to take away. He's swallowed it all except some splinters. Better give him the water to try and wash it down with." And as Penrod complied, "My gracious, look at that horse drink." They gave Whitey 4 buckets of water, and then debated the question of nourishment. Obviously, this horse could not be trusted with branches, and, after getting their knees black and their backs sodden, they gave up trying to pull enough grass to sustain him. Then Penrod remembered that horses like apples, both cooking apples and eating apples, and Sam mentioned the fact that every autumn his father received a barrel of cooking apples from a cousin who owned a farm. That barrel was in the Williams' cellar now, and the cellar was providentially supplied with outside doors so that it could be visited without going through the house. Sam and Penrod set forth for the cellar. They returned to the stable bulging, and after a discussion of Whitey's digestion, Sam claiming that eating the core and seeds, as Whitey did, would grow trees in his inside, they went back to the cellar for supplies again and again. They made 6 trips, carrying each time a capacity cargo of apples, and still Whitey ate in a famished manner. They were afraid to take more apples from the barrel, which began to show conspicuously the result of their raids, wherefore Penrod made an unostentatious visit to the cellar of his own house. From the inside, he opened a window and passed vegetables out to Sam, who placed them in a bucket and carried them hurriedly to the stable, while Penrod returned in a casual manner through the house. Of his sang-froid under a great strain, it is sufficient to relate that in the kitchen he said suddenly to Della the cook, "Oh, look behind you!" And by the time Della discovered that there was nothing unusual behind her, Penrod was gone, and a loaf of bread from the kitchen table was gone with him. Whitey now ate 9 turnips, 2 heads of lettuce, 1 cabbage, 11 raw potatoes, and the loaf of bread. He ate the loaf of bread last, and he was a long time about it, so the boys came to a not unreasonable conclusion. "Well, sir, I guess we got him filled up at last," said Penrod. "I bet he wouldn't eat a saucer of ice cream now if we'd give it to him." "He looks better to me," said Sam, staring critically at Whitey. "I think he's kind of begun to fill out some. I expect he must like us, Penrod. We've been doing a good deal for this horse." "Well, we got to keep it up," Penrod insisted rather pompously. "Long as I got charge of this horse, he's going to get good treatment. What we better do now, Penrod?" Penrod took on the outward signs of deep thought. "Well, there's plenty to do, all right. I got to think." Sam made several suggestions, which Penrod, maintaining his air of preoccupation, dismissed with mere gestures. "Oh, I know," Sam cried finally. "We ought to wash him so's he'll look whiter'n what he does now. We can turn the hose on him across the manger." "No, not yet," Penrod said. "It's too soon after his meal. You ought to know that yourself. What we got to do is to make up a bed for him, if he wants to lay down or anything." "Make up a what for him?" Sam echoed, dumbfounded. "What you talking about? How can—" "Sawdust," Penrod said. "That's the way the horse we used to have it. We'll make this horse's bed in the other stall, and then he can go in there and lay down whenever he wants to. How are we going to do it?" "Look, Sam, there's the hole into the sawdust box. All you got to do is walk in there with the shovel, Stick the shovel in the hole till it gets full of sawdust, and then sprinkle it around on the empty stall." "All I got to do," Sam cried. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to be right here," Penrod answered reassuringly. "He won't kick or anything, and it isn't going to take you half a second to slip around behind him to the other stall." "What makes you think he won't kick?" "Well, I know he won't, and besides, you could hit him with the shovel if he tried to. Anyhow, I'll be right here, won't I?" "I don't care where you are," Sam said earnestly. "What difference would that make if he keep—" "Why, you were going right in the stall," Penrod reminded him. "When he first came in, you were going to take the rake, and—" "I don't care if I was," Sam declared. "I was excited then." "Well, you can get excited now, can't you?" his friend urged. "You can just as easy get—" He was interrupted by a shout from Sam, who was keeping his eye upon Whitey throughout the discussion. "Look! Looky there!" And undoubtedly renewing his excitement, Sam pointed at the long, gaunt head beyond the manger. It was disappearing from view. "Look!" Sam shouted. "He's laying down!" "Well then," said Penrod, "I guess he's going to take a nap. If he wants to lay down without waiting for us to get the sawdust fixed for him, that's his lookout, not ours." On the contrary, Sam perceived a favorable opportunity for action. "I'd just as soon go and make his bed up while he's laying down," he volunteered. "You climb up on the manger and watch him, Penrod, and I'll sneak in the other stall and fix it all up nice for him, so's he can go in there any time when he wakes up and lay down again or anything, and if he starts to get up, you holler, and I'll jump out over the other manger." Accordingly, Penrod established himself in a position to observe the recumbent figure. Whitey's breathing was rather labored but regular, and, as Sam remarked, he looked better, even in his slumber. It is not to be doubted that although Whitey was suffering from a light attack of colic, his feelings were in the main those of contentment. After trouble, he was solaced. After exposure, he was sheltered. After hunger and thirst, he was fed and watered. He slept. The noon whistles blew before Sam's task was finished, but by the time he departed for lunch, there was made a bed of such quality that Whitey must needs have been a born fault-finder if he complained of it. The friends parted, each urging the other to be prompt in returning, but Penrod got into threatening difficulties as soon as he entered the house.